And I want to welcome everyone to our coffee hour this morning. I'm excited to have as our guests this morning Holly Brenda and Karen Lippman from Big Brothers Big Sisters of Lorain County. And some of you have already had an opportunity to hear from them and meet them when we did an information session a couple of weeks ago, right before the holidays. So I want to welcome you back and also introduce Sue Whitekin, who's our marketing and events coordinator, who's going to be helping us here as people have questions. So a couple of things, you can put this in speaker view and you'll see just one picture of the person who's talking, or you can leave it in your gallery view. That's usually if you move your cursor. For me, it's my upper right-hand corner. It says view, and you can choose between the two. So whatever you're most comfortable with. And if you have questions or comments, you can type in the chat or in the questions and answers, and Sue will kind of keep an eye on that for us. And we'll try to address and answer any questions that you have as we go along. So anyway, welcome everybody and Happy New Year. Glad to have you both here with us. I thought I'd start with maybe just having both of you introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your role and maybe how long you've been with Big Brothers Big Sisters, why you're there, what's most important to you in your work. So Holly, I'll start with you if you don't mind.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lynn, for the second invitation to get to know your
You're
resident,
welcome.
share some information about Big Brothers Big Sisters. I come to Big Brothers and Big Sisters as of June 16th of this year. I was the former mayor of the city of Elyria for 8 years. And prior to that, worked almost 30 years in K-12 education, higher education, and the nonprofit world in Greater Cleveland, and was the former past president and member of the Elyria Board of Education for 12 years. So children have always been a big part of my life. And I'm a mom of 4 kids and a grandma. So, I was excited at the end of my career to be able to join an organization that could continue to serve children here in our county. I'm a fifth generation Lorain Countyan, and while our kids have a tremendous amount of potential, they also have some real challenges. And the opportunity to use resources that I have and to be able to connect out there to help improve their quality of life and help others help them was something that was very attractive to me. So that's what I've been doing since June. And I have to say, certainly I joined the organization at an interesting time, just like we're all experiencing, the some different ways of doing business as a result of the pandemic and the social justice movement in our country. And so while it's been some things have made it extraordinarily challenging, and especially how to deal with our children and share information with them in this challenging time, we find it that educators are reaching out to us more and more. And I'll go and I don't talk too long, but um, Big Brothers Big Sisters is needed now more than ever. The mentoring services are needed now more than ever. Children and families are doing the best they can, but they tend to be very isolated in this type of a situation. And especially with virtual learning in our schools, it's very difficult. Educators are communicating to us that it's very difficult to keep kids engaged. And so we're looking for unique ways to do that. And that's one of the things I'll talk about a little bit later. But I'm sure Karen has some things to share as well.
Sure.
Great, thank you. Karen, welcome.
Karen Littman. I'm the director of programs, and as new as Holly is to Big Brothers, I'm even newer. I've been here for, I think we just counted, I think it's like 90 days now. So I'm brand new in the position. I come from juvenile court in Cuyahoga County, where I was for 20 years doing a number of different jobs in programming and grants there. So I'm really excited to be with Big Brothers Big Sisters because, working with kids that I used to say when I was in juvenile court is by the time they come to juvenile court, they've actually been missed by 3 or 4 or 5 different systems have missed those kids, and that's why they've ended up at the court. And Big Brothers Big Sisters really offers sort of a best practice kind of evidence-based programming that really can help kids to not only not end up in juvenile court, but also to help them in being successful at school and being successful as they grow up and in relationships and sort of everything. And so I'm really excited to be part of an organization that is providing those kinds of opportunities for kids here. And like Holly had said, it's interesting and unusual time it is. It's actually been really exciting, really sort of recreating a lot of the mentoring relationships in sort of safe ways for kids and families through virtual technology, which really has been a godsend. If we didn't have the virtual technology, I'm not sure how we would even continue doing mentoring relationships. But so that's just a little bit of sort of where I've come from and why I'm excited to be here. And I'm really excited about this opportunity of working with Kendal at Home at residents, because I think it just provides really just sort of a win-win situation for both the residents as well as for the kids in Lorain.
Right. Yeah. I think Kendall at Home members, I think, are in a unique position to be able to offer so much to those that are open and willing to partner with us as well. Obviously, people come into this program as members and come from all walks of life and have so much to offer. I've learned so much just from the years that I've been working with those that we serve, and I think they have so much to offer. So when Holly called, this seemed like a great opportunity to think about how we could partner amongst our organizations. And you're right, a lot of these things have come about because of the virtual technology. I think that's available and provide a unique opportunity for members, no matter where they live, to be able to help these children no matter where they live, and partner with them. We did a brief stint with local schools, some local schools, and they've been doing some letter writing, and just to be able to see the impact that that has. And to read some of the letters that the kids are sharing, it's really, I I think, such a unique opportunity, and this could even take that further. So tell us a little bit about the children that come to you. How do you find them? How do they find you? What is it about this organization? What are they looking for in particular? I know you mentioned Holly schools referring, that kind of thing. How do people find Big Brothers Big Sisters, and what makes them eligible for services as well, and becoming getting paired up? And what are the big brothers and big sisters? How do they find you as well? What's that look like?
Sure.
Go ahead, Holly.
I'll give a little bit of a background, and then Karen can give some detail. So Big Brothers Big Sisters of Lorain County is an affiliate of the National Big Brothers Big Sisters of America program. As Karen said earlier, it is a research and evidence-based mentoring program, the largest in the United States and the highest performing. We became an affiliate in 1994 when Leadership Lorain County took it on as a project, because they were hearing from members of the community that children needed other ways to become engaged. So, we have a number of different types of programs. And the reason we do that is because children do come to us from different ways. So, Lynn, as you had stated earlier, we have school site-based programs where we have individuals coming in at lunchtime or after school to mentor our children. We get referrals from teachers and guidance counselors and mental health organizations and just parents who call. We disseminate information through the schools directly to parents, as well as to the professional educators and counselors in our buildings. We also have community-based programming where adult individuals can mentor a child in the community. So outside of school, they basically meet with them um, in a lot, a largely public free places. So they'll go to the park, they might take them to a movie, they might enjoy a baseball game. And then, then came the pandemic, and those two programs were clearly not enough. So we automatically transferred all of our matches over to virtual on Zoom platforms, and the ones in schools, some of them went to the Google platform. And so it's really, it's always better to mentor in person, but this has forced us to look at a whole nother platform, and it's opened up some doors too. So I'm not sure if it wasn't for the pandemic, we'd be having this conversation. But it has proved to be quite exciting because individuals who might not have felt that they could be a mentor because of logistics or transportation or just their situation or health or safety reasons are finding that, in fact, this virtual avenue opens up that door. And so we have responded in a number of ways. We have actually created a waiver system. So even with all of our matches transferred to virtual, if the mentor and the child feel comfortable, we still have match activities where they can join up in safe ways out in the community if they choose to. It's completely voluntary. So, for example, we might host we in the last couple of months we've added some things. So we had an outdoor
Scavenger hunt.
scavenger hunt at the Lorain County Metro Parks. We had our holiday party outside at Autorama, which is very interesting. Who's ever heard of having a drive-in holiday party? But we did it.
Tell us a little bit about that. What did that look like? What did you do?
Well, we one of our sponsors, Sunnyside Chevrolet, actually rented the Autorama for us. So we had exclusive rights to the outdoor Autorama, and the folks who own the organization set it up so that we paced cars socially distantly, so that people were far enough apart. We had Santa and his elves, and there were special messaging and programming up on the screen, and then we showed Elf, and then the children were treated to hot dogs and pizza, and then actually were able to access their gifts. We opened up the Autorama concession area, and our children took a ticket and they came in one by one so that we were all safe and socially distant. And a lot of organizations unfortunately had to cancel their events. We usually have that event which hosts around 300 children in the Spitzer Conferencing Center at Lorain County Community College. But because it was too much of an enclosed area, we couldn't do that this year. So, we're just trying to find creative ways to continue the matches and keep the programs going, and the virtual mentoring and bringing in folks, especially at Kendal, who many of whom have education and other caring backgrounds, is really kind of an exciting prospect for us.
Tell us a little bit about some experiences that you can share amongst the children that are little or and little brothers and sisters and some of the matches. What are some of the outcomes you've seen as a result of this program?
Sure. Um, you know, Children come to us from all different types of circumstances. We don't turn any child away who would like a mentor. So we have families who because of certain circumstances still have, the child may still have two parents, but because of circumstances of illness or other things, they feel as though their child could benefit from a mentor. So there's no socioeconomic criteria that we use other than to say that the majority of our children um, actually come from at-risk situations, either economically or socially. Um, we have, for example, some of our children, one of their parent may be in the military, and so the other parent thinks that they could benefit from, a mentor of that gender. Some of our children come from single parent households, and the parent feels as though they could benefit from this. Some of our children may have a specific mental health diagnosis and are actually referred to us from a mental health network here in Lorain County. Some of our children uh, find out about the program and ask for it themselves, which is really kind of great. As I said before, school guidance counselors make referrals. We have children whose parents, one or two of them, may be incarcerated and may be being raised by a grandparent, and the grandparent feels as though the child could benefit from it. And the one thing I can say is, in working with these kids, what I've found, and I think our match specialist would certainly echo this, they all have tremendous gifts. They really do. And they just need a caring adult to help bring these out in them. All of our research shows, and so does the national research, and Karen can talk about this a little bit more, but when a child has a caring adult assigned to them as a mentor over an extended period of time, and Karen, what I think you could talk about is, what kind of a commitment we're looking at from folks.
Mm-hmm.
But when that happens, a child's self-esteem improves, their risky behaviors decrease. And when we say risky behaviors, we mean, alcohol and drug use, we mean gang activity, we mean anything that might, any type of behavior that might put that child at risk. We see that many of them have improved school attendance, and then as a consequence have higher graduation rates, and more go on to higher education or make positive choices about their future. And it helps their families too. And when you do that with families, you really help your larger community. And that was really one of the reasons why I was so interested in getting involved, because that families are the foundation of what builds communities. And so the more we can do to strengthen individual children and their families, the stronger our communities in Lorain County can be. And Karen, why don't you talk a little bit about, really what it takes to be a mentor? Because we're not, while it's a commitment, we've made it manageable for people so that it's something that can be a joy.
Right. So I think a lot of times people think, oh, I couldn't do that. I don't have the time to do that. And, or it's a little bit unwieldy to make such a giant commitment to another kid. And I think one of the nice things about the virtual platform, and especially sort of the group that we're looking at for the Kendal at Home members, is something that's very, very defined as far as the day and the time, and sort of what kinds of activities are involved in doing that. And so we generally look for a year commitment, which seems like this enormous amount of time. But we're really only looking at maybe 45 minutes or so, once a week or once every other week, depending on how we structure it. So it's really not, when you break it down that way, it's not something that is going to be sort of seem like this giant time. And, we find that the kids and the mentors really look forward to that time together. And when we do our group activities, we have something that sort of helps to sort of center the conversation in the beginning. We start with everyone together, the volunteers and the kids all together. And then through the Zoom platform, we can use what's called breakout rooms, where the mentor and the child will go into a Zoom platform, but it would be just the two of them in that room, and they can talk about whatever the topic is. They can talk about whatever the assignment is, but then, or they can just talk about whatever they want to talk about. That's just something out there to help in case the mentor or the mentee needs that extra little help in getting the conversation going. So it becomes just whatever they want to be. And then at the end, we all come together and share something and talk about our experiences or whatever. And it's really a very supportive kind of environment, not only between the volunteer and the child, but also with the group as a whole. And so there's a lot of different kinds of formats that we can do as far as that curriculum and the timing and the kids and the age of the kids and all of that, because we do have a large wait list of kids that are waiting for services. And we take a lot of consideration of not just, oh, here's a volunteer and here's a youth, and let's just throw them together. Is that a lot of the onboarding process for volunteers is, what are you looking for, and what kind of kid are you comfortable with mentoring? We try to keep mentors to be same gender, so we have girls and girls together and boys together. But a lot of mentors will say, well, I want an older child, or I want somebody who's over the age of 11 or 12. And some will say, no, I want a younger child. Some will say, you know what, I don't feel comfortable with someone who's had any kind of abuse in their past or mental health, in the past. And we're like, that's fine. I mean, you can, make those kinds of requests. And we want this to be a positive experience for everybody. And at the same time, when we talk to parents about finding a mentor for their child, is we do the same kind of thing. Is what do you think would be a good match for your child? What kind of mentor are you looking for your child, and what would you be comfortable with or not comfortable with, and the same kinds of questions. And then we look at all of that stuff, and we do assessments and interviewing and whatever, and then we put matches together. And then there's always an opportunity to say, for either the mentor or the child to say, this is not a good match for me. So so that's sort of a little bit about the process and sort of what we're looking at. And I don't know, did we want to talk? I don't know, Lynn, what did you want to go to next?
No, go ahead, Karen.
I'm just, I don't remember sort of what your question was. So I just sort of went off into it.
I think what I was thinking as a follow-up to that was kind of that what you're just talking about right now is, how do you determine, how to make those matches? Like, do you gather through an application process? Are you gathering a little bit of information about the volunteer? And do you do that same sort of process as you're bringing children into the program and identifying those that are at need or are wishing to have a mentor? What kind of information, if someone's listening today and they're thinking, well, this might be kind of interesting, I'd like to learn a little bit more about it. What kind of information do you ask us for if we're interested? If I wanted to consider being a big brother, a big sister, I'd be a big sister, but what would you want to know about me? What kinds of information would you be looking for?
Right. So for volunteers that are interested in participating in our program, one of the things, that Holly talked about in sort of her introduction is that Big Brothers Big Sisters is one of the, if not the oldest sort of mentoring program in the country, where it's well over 100 years old, as well as being sort of a best practice evidence-based model. And one of the things that is really key to the Big Brothers model is child safety. So when volunteers come to us, it's very important that we not only interview them and find out, what was their, what's their family like, and what was their upbringing like, and what, growing up, what did their family look like? And why do they want a little brother or a little sister? And so those kind of questions. At the same time, we also ask for references, where we check those references and see, do you think that this person would be a good big brother or big sister? And we also do background checks, because that child safety is really, really key to a successful program. Because remember, you're going then to a parent and saying, here's somebody that you don't know that's going to be spending time with your kid.
Right.
And we want to be able to assure them that, hey, we've done all of our due diligence and make sure that this is really um, a good person, a good safe person, a caring person that can really interact with your kid. And then the other piece of that's really, really key to the Big Brother Big Sister model is our match support specialists, which means that they will check in with the parent and the youth and the mentor on a periodically on a schedule, where they're checking in, and it's not just like, how's it going and what have you been doing and whatever, but it's also checking in with the child. If, hey, do you have any are there any kind of red flags or any, they don't use that language, but anything that's you're questioning, and anything that both to the parent and to the youth that doesn't seem right. So we ask those questions just to make sure that kids are safe, because that's really, really key. And then the last piece that we do is we have a number of what we call surveys, which really rate everything from the strength of the relationship to sort of the outcomes, whether it's the youth, whether an older youth or a child, of whether they're sort of reaching some goals. And we always try to put some development goals in the relationship. So it's not just like, let's go out and have fun, but what do we hope that the youth will gain from this? Do we hope that they are able to interact with other people more easily? If they're a real shy child, maybe that communication skills is something that would really be helpful for them to sort of feel more confident in themselves. Or do they want to have an opportunity to explore an interest that they maybe can't at home because no one has the time for them, or what have you. So we look at those kinds of things as well as looking at risk and protective factors, and like Holly mentioned, a lot of risk factors. We want to be sure that those get reduced or stay down, but at the same time look at protective factors, which are things like school attendance and good relationships and such, to make sure that the more protective factors are in a youth's life, that the better chance that they will be successful as they get older. So
I think that brings up an important point. So, and I know you talked about, serving all different kinds of children from all walks of life. And if you have a child with, and I guess it doesn't really matter whether they have mental health issues or, they're living in a difficult situation. But if you have a concern as a volunteer for their safety or their well-being, are there support services available through Big Brothers Big Sisters that would help guide someone in terms of how to navigate that? What appropriate steps, whether it's
mhm.
just being supportive to that child, or sometimes other necessary steps might be needed. How does a volunteer know how to handle those kinds of situations if they should arise?
Well, first of all, I mean, being a child serving agency, we are mandatory reporters here. So if anyone here sees or is suspicious, we do have
Correct.
mandatory reporting requirements. That being said, we also offer a lot of training to volunteers, and it's something that we ask volunteers all the time. Are you interested in any information on whatever, or any kind of training? And we actually, through Big Brothers of America, they have something called the Learning Exchange, and they have a lot of online formats that we can get set up for volunteers so that um, they can get that training, or that stuff that we can provide in-house as well. Um, but that being said, at any time, if there's any concerns that a volunteer has, they have a match support specialist who they can call at any time, or me or Holly for that matter, if they can't reach their match support specialist, and say, hey, this doesn't look right. I don't feel good about this, or my little told me something that just is not really feeling good for me. And that's something that we can then take that ball and run with it and figure out what next steps are. So that support is always there, and and no volunteer should ever feel like once they're matched that we sort of push them out the door and say, have at it. That we're always there. So not only do we have regular check-ins with everyone, but that door is always open, that they can always contact us as well.
And
Right.
if I add, I think the key point here that Karen's making is one of the things that makes Big Brothers Big Sisters unique in the mentoring world is that every single one-on-one relationship is professionally supported. Our match specialists are degreed child professionals, licensed social workers, and other related degrees that have a full understanding of the child welfare system and the appropriate responses associated with every type of circumstance that comes up. So, in the assessment process and in the follow up, those types of check ins are necessary to make sure that the support is there, not just for the child, but for the mentor as well. And we're very schooled in the areas of liability and the areas of concern that sometimes come up in these relationships. And we always want our mentors to know and understand that they are not in this alone. The other thing I did want to mention too is we do try to make this fun. And one of the things that, in addition to the interview and the assessments and the surveys, we do take into consideration the interests of our mentors and our mentees. So if we have individuals who have a child, for example, who has a real interest in art or culture or dance or history or a sport or whatever it is, if we can find an adult mentor that has those similar interests and can share that type of exchange with the child, all the better. So we want to capitalize on the knowledge and experiences of our potential mentors as well. And while we want to provide a framework to be able to support the sessions and the match relationships, we also want to give enough freedom in the relationship for it to be special for these one-on-one matches. So, that's the key. When we talked about how to structure this for Kendal, I know there was some discussion as to whether or not they should be, the relationship should be one-on-one individual, or if we should start with a group and then do the breakout. And I think just as a pilot, that having some collective framework and then the breakout was the preferred choice among the number of people, just as you get more used to being a mentor and the program. But we have, as Karen was saying, we have a number of different ways that we can structure this. And we certainly want to work with Kendal. It may be that we can have some additional conversation about how much structure you'd like. We use different program curricula for different groups. So give you some examples, we work with the Effective Leadership Academy, which is an organization here in Northeast Ohio that does social and emotional programming. So they actually bring in a facilitator for some of our group sessions to do like the first 20 minutes to facilitate a conversation that builds on subject areas in the areas of social emotional learning. And then the breakout sessions go forward with further discussion and or just individual discussions about themed topics of interest among the matches. In other circumstances, there's other curriculum available if you want it. For example, we have book clubs where we can have joint book discussions and then breakout. Or, Kendal at Oberlin, I know lots of folks are retired educators and counselors. You may have some better ideas that we are fully open to exploring with you. if you want to do some joint group activity at the beginning and then do the breakouts. So, you know, we're very flexible. We want to make sure that we create a structure that capitalizes on all the assets at Kendall, while helping our kids at the same time and making it you know, a great experience for everybody.
Mhm. Right. I just want to clarify a couple things. It's Kendall at home, and so all of our members are people that live independently in their own
Right.
homes for the most part, as opposed to Kendall at Oberlin, where a lot of residents on the campus. Not that they wouldn't want a partner. That might be another opportunity to extend to them as well. I think that what we were talking about, and Holly, you've alluded to this a little bit, is that we know there, as you mentioned, a waiting list of kids who would like to have a mentor and are in need. And we have, I think, a ready and willing group of members who have come forward and said they'd really like to engage in this opportunity. So what we thought might be next steps would be to introduce an orientation and training
Hmm.
as a group to any of the Kendall at Home members. And I know some of the staff have indicated some interest as well, and give them an opportunity to sit in on that training, ask questions, get a better handle on, what I think we all feel a little bit more comfortable getting some framework and education that help guide us. I know my own experience prior to coming to Kendall at Home, most of my career was in victim services, and I can only imagine um, the many children that we worked with who lived in um, very difficult situations. And although we had a lot of professionals who supported them through whatever process they might be going through in their families, um, just having a supportive and caring older adult it made all the difference in the world for them. And being able to provide them with that kind of support and just someone to have fun with, to laugh, to talk about what's concerning them. It might be school challenges they're dealing with. It could be any number of things made all the difference in the world for those kids. And I think this is an opportunity. We were talking before we got started, about children living through a year of this pandemic and their worlds being turned upside down with school and remote school and going to school and anxiety about safety and parents who maybe are displaced from their work as well, and all of the things that are happening, the racial justice issues, and now the events that have occurred this week. It's a challenging time as a family to sort through all of this, and I think just having the support that we probably all need as we navigate through these uncharted waters is pretty important. So I think the next step for us is setting a date to offer an orientation session,
Hmm.
and then kind of just determine as a group, where do we want to go from here. I think we're open to whatever the members are interested in doing, but if people are interested in getting started, we'd like to get moving with it too. So I think next steps for us, and Holly and Karen, I'll look to you, would be for us to set a date for that orientation session and invite members who as I said, we've got a group of folks who have already stepped forward, and we'll communicate further with members to generate a little more interest and see who else might be interested, and then to set up that training time so that people can participate and get comfortable with what the next steps might be, complete applications, all of that. Karen, can you talk through the logistics of that a little bit if someone's interested and wants to participate and we host that orientation session? What happens first? Do they need to complete the application and get through that screening process first?
Yeah, I mean, they need to, well, I mean, this is a little bit different because we're going to do sort of a group orientation first, which is clearly part of any onboarding would be this orientation. So we will a little bit different order since we're going to have this group come in. Um, so we'll do sort of that orientation and information sort of up front, and then we can have applications for folks to complete, which is really just going to be some, you know, really easy information, because then what we'll do is we will have one of our match support specialists actually reach out to each person and start that interview process and start the
Okay.
process of really getting all of that assessment information and interview information down, and then start with the references and the background checks and all of those kinds of pieces that would need to come in.
Okay.
But I think part of the orientation then is we can sort of go through each one of those steps and like what would be expected, you know, and you know, how would that process, what would it look like, and you know, and then what could you expect then for as far as matching and stuff, which, like I said, is a little bit different than a mentor coming to us sort of more naturally, where we would go through that process and say, okay, we're going to look for the right match for you. I think what's a little bit also unique here, depending on if we do this group, sort of what we call group facilitated, is we would need to sort of come together and figure out like what topics or what kind of curricula we want to use or whatever, because that would help us then determine the youth that we would match. So, you know, so that interview process that individual interview process would actually help us in saying, hey, I'm looking, you know, for younger kids, or I'm open to any age kid or an older kid, and depending on the number of folks that come in, if we had one group or two groups, but that would help us sort of identify what that curricula looked like. So for example, if we did like a book club and book discussion thing, we obviously would need books that would be, you know, age appropriate and literacy level appropriate, which is actually something that some of the schools have identified is, and I've actually heard nationally that a lot of kids their reading skills are falling behind where their grade level is, just because they're just not physically in school. So, you know, or we could look at even some kind of STEM kind of curricula, if that's something that's interested for folks or whatever. So that would be sort of part of whoever would go through that first orientation, and we would then sort of start to narrow down what those groups would look like.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great.
And it's possible we can have more than one group. I mean, if you have, you know, one or two or three categories of interest and expertise, you know, great. So,
Right. Or, and you know, even if people want to do it individually and aren't comfortable with that group setting, there's nothing to preclude them from reaching out to you directly and doing that. I think the idea is to be able to match people and provide that opportunity. I agree that having the ability to do it with the use of technology makes it so much easier for people who might otherwise not be able to do this, to be able to participate. I do want to open it up to our participants to ask if there are any questions. If you can, there are a number of things you can do. You can type in the chat box or in the question and answer box, or you can also raise your hand. And if you do that, I can allow you to speak. I can give you permission to talk. So we can do it any way you'd like if anyone has any questions. I don't see anything in the chat or the question and answer.
Quiet group today.
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Sue?
Said we have a quiet group today.
Oh, okay. Yep. Absolutely. Good. I can always count on Jody for a question. I can't believe she doesn't have one.
well, and I will say too, if after we hang up, if people think of some things they'd like to talk about, you're more than willing, you know, we're more than happy to take your calls here at Big Brothers Big Sisters. We're open from 9 to 5, and we can be reached via phone or email. Our phone number is 440-277-6541. That's 440-277-6541. Or they can email Karen or I. It's our first name, so it's pretty simple. It's the same. For me, it's Holly@BigLorainCounty.org. And for Karen, it's Karen@bigloraincounty.org. So
And
either one.
Sue, can we put that contact information in the surveys when we send that out? Is that possible?
Absolutely. I will put the email addresses in the note. You'll all be emailed a thank you tomorrow. And I will put it in the body of the email we send out tomorrow.
And you
we
also can go, I'm sorry, you also look at our website as well. All that,
Yes.
the phone number and the emails and everything is on the website as well.
Okay, thank you. And we have applications available in our office as well. So any number of ways that we can share information with you and follow up. And then we'll get a notice out to members who've expressed interest and even those that haven't, if they're interested and weren't able to participate today, and get something scheduled. So we'll circle back, and I'm looking forward to working with both of you and what this might provide in terms of opportunities. You know, I think it's so important for our older adults that have been socially isolated too, you know, staying at home during this pandemic and trying to maintain safety in order to maintain their health and well-being. It's still so critically important to have that human contact. And I think this is a great opportunity to be able to achieve the goals of both of our organizations and have fun in the process too, right?
Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
a great opportunity.
Thank you so much. We're excited about the opportunity and excited about working with all of you.
And we are as well. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.